For my senior project, I decided to conduct a study looking at play in a kindergarten classroom and the benefits it can have on social, emotional, and language and literacy development. What is the problem? Many researchers agree today that play is really critical to a child's overall development. Others also agree that play, especially in kindergarten classrooms, are on a decline. When you walk into a kindergarten classroom in a school district today, it is very common to walk in and see no play, no hands-on learning, and many children working quietly and independently on worksheets. Play is so beneficial to children, and children can reap so many benefits from play. But it is starting to disappear in many kindergarten classrooms today, and they are missing out on these amazing benefits. Social emotional development in play is one of those benefits that children can gain from playing. Within social emotional development, there are important domains such as self-regulation, social competence, empathy, and responsibility. Self-regulation is where a child has the ability to manage or express his or her emotions. For example, when a child is having a hard time leaving mom or dad at drop-off and they become crying uncontrollably and won't stop, they are having a hard time self-regulating. If they are able to self-regulate, the child would take a deep breath, calm down, and know that mom or dad would pick them up in a few hours. Social competence is how children interact and communicate with other children or adults. Empathy is where children feel for another person or child and can express the emotions they are feeling similarly. And responsibility is where a child can hold accountability for his or her own actions. In one study I looked at, researchers looked at play and whether it enhances self-regulation. What the researchers found was that yes, indeed play, specifically symbolic play, does help a child's development with their self-regulation and able to understand their emotions. Other researchers have found that even relationship skills are strengthened from a child's social-emotional development because of so much interaction that goes on during play amongst peers. Even their social-emotional development and relationship skills, it was even linked to their academic and future success. Language and literacy development in play is another huge benefit children can gain from play. According to Neldrow and Bush, as cited in Lifter, Mason, Barton, they suggest that play itself is a domain of development. It can even enhance a child's language and literacy development, even children diagnosed with a developmental disability. If children with a developmental disability can use such benefits from play, imagine children who do not suffer from a developmental disability. During play is where children are able to interact with their peers in a safe environment and explore the world around them. They can practice all kinds of communication and take on any kind of role they want, such as an astronaut, a builder, a princess. The options are endless. They are able to use gestures, dialogues, debate, deciding who's playing what, and are able to use nonverbal communication and body language. According to Neldrow and Bush, as cited in Janishi Dyson, they explain that to even get fantasy play going, children rely a lot on their language. They have to take on these roles, and they're using all sorts of language and strengthening their vocabulary. Tools of the Mind curriculum was the intervention I used in my study. It was developed by Bedrova and Leong, but was really based off of the research and practices found by childhood theorists Vygotsky and Luria. Vygotsky was all about hands-on learning, play, and allowing children to explore the environment around them, and that is basically what this curriculum encompasses. These playful activities involve math or literacy, but each of the activities includes some sort of self-regulatory component. Each lesson and activity has social-emotional development woven throughout. A study that looked at this curriculum to see if it was beneficial to children found that this curriculum does improve children's classroom experience, their overall social-emotional development, and even their cognitive development in so many different areas. As you can see, this curriculum does show many benefits to children, especially having social emotional development woven in throughout. For the participants in my study, Los Angeles Unified School District volunteered 10 of their kindergarten classrooms who were picked at random. Each classroom has one teacher to every 20 students. In total, I had 200 kindergartners and 10 teachers. In my experimental group, there were 5 classrooms, and in my control group, there were 5 classrooms. In my experimental group that was receiving the intervention, there were 48 girls and 52 boys, 77 5-year-olds and 26 6-year-olds. The overall mean age was 5.5 years old. In my control group, who did not receive the intervention, there were 47 girls and 53 boys, 73 5-year-olds and 24 6-year-olds, and the mean age was 5.5 years old. The overall ethnicity, primarily, the ethnicity for the students were Hispanic and African American, 60% Hispanic and 40% African Americans. Participants continued. Not only did I have the students in my study, but the teachers played a role in it too. I had 10 teachers total, but in the experimental group there were 5 teachers. They were in their mid-20s and early 40s, and the overall mean age was 30.6 years old. In the control group, again, I had 5 teachers. They were in their mid-20s and early 40s, and the mean age was 36.4 years old. For ethnicity, primarily, the teachers were Hispanic and Caucasian, Hispanic 70% and Caucasian 30%. In my study, I used 2 measures. The first measure was the Sears-T. The Sears-T, also known as the Social Emotional Assets and Resilience Scale, measured competencies of children ranging from ages 5 to 18 years old. It has 41 items and uses a 4-point response. Never, sometimes, often, and always. This measure was designed to measure the teacher's opinions about the child's social-emotional competencies across the 4 domains titled self-regulation, social competence, empathy, and responsibility. For this assessment tool, there is a Sears-P where the parents fill it out, but for my study, I decided to just use the Sears-T where the teachers fill out this assessment tool based on their students' social emotional development. And the reliability coefficient for the Sears-T was a 0.98. The second measure I used in my study was called the DIBELS, also known as the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. It assesses skills that form the early basis for early reading success during kindergarten all the way through 3rd grade. The assessment is made up of subtests, known as the Initial Sound Fluency, ISF, Letter Naming Fluency, which was basically letter recognition, LNF, Phoneme Segmentation Fluency, PSF, and Nonsense Word Fluency, NWF. So the reliability coefficient is broken up into the different subtests. So for the ISF, it was a 0.75, for PSF, it was a 0.62, and the NWF, it was a 0.69, and the LNF, a 0.81. So the procedure of my study. So first, the experimental group was asked to participate in an intervention known as the Tools of the Mind curriculum. Over the summer, there was extensive training for the experimental group teachers. They were given all sorts of materials to use in their classrooms. They were shown different lessons they could use with their students using hands-on learning and play, and they were also invited to visit various classrooms that incorporated Tools of the Mind curriculum as well. After the first week of classes, the research team went in and assessed using the DIBELS assessment for the experimental group first, and then they went to the control group classrooms. During the 4th week of school, teachers from both the experimental and control group filled out Sears-T assessments for each of their children. Throughout the school year, the research team would check in with the experimental group teachers at random times to make sure they needed any supplies or any help with lesson ideas. Towards the end of the school year in the spring, 3 weeks before school was out, the research team went back and assessed both groups, the experimental group first, then the control group, and assessed them using the DIBELS again. The second to last week of school, the teachers used the Sears-T to assess each of their students as well from both groups. After the study was over, the following summer, teachers from the control group were invited to participate in the same training the experimental group teachers experienced over the summer if they would like. So my 2 research questions. Will the use of a play-based curriculum improve students' social-emotional development, such as their self-regulation and social skills? And will the use of a play-based curriculum improve students' academic achievement in literacy and language development? So for my results for the first question, the experimental group Sears-T assessment, which measured their social-emotional development both in the fall and spring, showed an extensive increase. From the fall, it went from a 33.66 mean score to the mean score in the spring being 49.24. There was a huge increase in the children's social-emotional development receiving the intervention, known as Tools of the Mind curriculum. For my second research question, looking at the dibbles in my experimental group, each of the different subtests did show a huge increase from fall to spring for my children who were receiving the intervention. For ISF in the fall, it was a 9.30, and in the spring went up to a 40.05. LNF in the fall went from a 13.22 to a 48.77. For PSF, it went from a 7.57 to a 40.22, and NWF went from an 8.63 to a 37.55. For the experimental group in both assessments, they showed a huge significant increase from the fall to the spring. Looking at my table, you can see once again the huge and significant increases that my experimental group kindergartners had from the fall and spring. There were huge increases all across the board, but if you look under the control group, for Sears-T, there wasn't much of an increase, which was expected because of the fact that they weren't receiving any intervention at all. But if you look under the dibbles, there is a bit of an increase from fall to spring, and that increase is due to the curriculum that the teachers from the control group were teaching their students. I expected there to be a slight increase from fall to spring because children grow and mature and learn a lot throughout a year, but it was not nearly as much of a significant increase as it was for my experimental group kindergartners who did receive the intervention. Their increase was far, far higher than the control group. So looking at my study and the current study I conducted, it does provide support that a play-based curriculum is effective in a kindergarten classroom and has many, many benefits, especially in strengthening the children's social-emotional development and even their language and literacy development. So play helps children socially, which helps strengthen their relationship with others, as well as their reading and writing. So play is not just a waste of time. It really helps children develop in so many different ways. Tools of the Mind curriculum uses hands-on learning, play, and encompasses social-emotional learning into it, which is important for all age children to receive some sort of social-emotional curriculum. Conclusion and application. So this study has truly shown, and other studies out there have shown, that play is beneficial for all children and not a waste of time. There needs to be a balance between play and district-mandated worksheets, which I hope to achieve when I am a kindergarten or elementary school teacher in the future. According to some scholars, another study that was conducted did show that children who played more did have a much, much stronger language skills opposed to children who lacked playtime. It just shows the importance of play at an early age and all the benefits it can have, especially with future relationships and socialization with others, especially when they are older. I am a huge advocate for play, especially in kindergarten, because I have seen it on the decline. I think play is important for all children at any age because of all the benefits play can have on their overall optimal development. And those are my references. Thank you.